7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And hello once again, Pacer Nation. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Pacer Nation with me, Marcus Johnson, and of course my co-host Jordan Phillips. Welcome back, and let's take you inside all the Pacer sports you know and love.
It's going to be an exciting episode. We got a big high-level announcement. Well, not an announcement, but a result from the weekend with baseball. So we're going to start off with that, I believe.
Oh yeah, baseball had a very surprisingly good weekend, not counting the last game, which was against North Greenville. But against conference foe and at the time number 9 in the nation, Columbus State, the Pacers swept them here at Roberto Hernandez Stadium. And that was an incredible win. Coming into the matchup, baseball was not ranked at all, and in the top 25. And with that huge win, one of the baseball polls, the collegiate baseball poll, has ranked the Pacers at number 15 in the nation. That's not the one that the NCAA recognizes, but that's still impressive that one of the national polls decides to recognize you.
Absolutely, and I mean, how could you not after such a huge win over the number 9 ranked team in the nation? They took the series all the way through, a complete sweep of the series, winning the first one 7-4, 5-2 in the second, and 3-1 in the third. And they had some dominant pitching performances throughout the series.
Mitch Spence, one of those dominant performances. He's been a bit of a hot and cold starter, but when he's hot, he is on fire, and he was, flaming, just throwing absolute gems out there on the mound in this game. He had 15 strikeouts, only 3 walks, 2 runs scored, and at one point he retired 11 batters in a row with 127 pitches in a complete game.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much better you can ask, especially from Mitch Spence, who last season was a reliever, usually a one-inning guy. He'd come in usually the 8th or the 9th and close the game out for the Pacers, but this year they wanted to convert him over to a starter. And, I mean, that's an encouraging performance out there. Now, it'd be hard to expect that kind of a performance every time he steps out there, obviously. But if you can even get half that performance, get a performance like that over 5 or 6 innings from Mitch Spence, I mean, you would have to be thrilled if you were Coach Kenny Thomas.
Well, I'm sure he is thrilled, considering that Spence's performance not only garnered him the Peach Belt Pitcher of the Week, but also the Southeast Region Pitcher of the Week honors. So incredible job for Mitch Spence. Congratulations to him, and we hope that he has a lot more games like that. But let's go ahead and look a little bit closer at that Columbus State series. One of the keys, as I've covered all these games this year, and one of the keys I think to their success is, I'm going to be very honest here. I believe that Columbus State, for most of the series, outplayed them, except maybe that last game. They did outplay the Pacers, but it came down to timely hitting in clutch situations. And I believe that one of the things is, if you look at the stats of the baseball team, their individual stats are down, but they're playing better as a unit, and that is the key right there. The fact that they are starting to work together as a real team, not relying on individual talent so much, is helping them to take on these nationally ranked opponents and beat them. And I think that's going to take them a lot farther this season.
Well, that's an interesting point that you make. The individual stats aren't, as high as you've seen them in the past, but what you have throughout the lineup is consistency. You've got a bunch of guys, about 6 or 7 guys hitting, 300, in between 300 and 295. So if you have that many guys who are hitting at that high of a level throughout your lineup, I mean, that's fantastic. Once you get to that 7, 8, 9 spot, it's not so much of a concern anymore. If 1 through 6 are all, high average, get on base power guys. You've got Joey Smithers hitting 309, Niall Goings hitting 304, Pereira 302. Then you go down Watcher's 296, Connor Durden 295. I mean, you can't ask for a much better performance from a group of guys who are going to be consistent starters in that lineup for the Pacers. I mean, they're hitting well as a unit.
And let's go take a look at a couple of those guys that I think are playing really consistent ball right now. Niall Goings has had a complete 180 from the start of the year, and he was actually named the Athlete of the Week for USC Aiken this week. He's batting over 300 now, which if you looked at him at the start of the season, he was batting he wasn't even batting 100. If he was, it was a very low 100. And he has completely turned things around. Over the past week, he went 8 for 13, good for a 615 batting average, 2 home runs, and 4 doubles. I mean, he is hitting the ball, and he is hitting it well.
Yeah, and you can kind of see, if you look at his stats on Pacersports.com, you can kind of see where that turnaround happened back in the Emmanuel game. He went 3 for 4 that game, and I mean, pretty much every game since then, he's at least reached base one time.
And that's interesting that you pointed out the Emmanuel game, because I believe it was at a previous episode we were talking about that. Is that going to be a confidence booster for the Pacers? Because that was a solid 21-4 victory.
It was.
And you sit there and think, well, maybe they're going to say, oh, well, we just beat the tar out of a team. We can relax, we're good. Or maybe they're going to say, hey, we just beat the tar out of the team. Let's keep this going. And it looks like they're saying, hey, let's keep this going. Especially Niall Goings, who was overshadowed by Brian Pereira's cycle. But even Pereira has kept things going, especially in Game 2 of that Columbus State series when he hit a go-ahead grand slam. Pacers were down 2-0, and then he just slapped one right over right field wall. I went nuts. The crowd went nuts. I mean, it was a good game. It was a great game.
It was an excellent game for the Pacers. But I mean, as you see here, like I mentioned, that Emmanuel game was the turning point for Niall Goings, and since that game, he's only had 3 games where he hasn't gotten a hit. So, I mean, that's an impressive feat for Goings. And as you mentioned, that is a complete 180 in his performance this season. And that's the funny thing about baseball. It's such a game of streaks, I mean, you can start off the season, 0 for whatever. But once you get that one hit, that confidence building hit, from there on, you're just on fire. And that's what we're seeing from Niall Goings right now, which is what we expected from him to start the season.
Yeah, you don't like the fact that it's a streaky game, but it's just one of the ugly truths you have to live with. But yeah, Niall Goings doing excellent. Brian Pereira is really stepping up to the plate. Dalton Weeks, who's struggling a little bit average-wise, he's still shelling home runs. He leads the team with 8 of them. So he's still doing well. He's also made a couple of really nice defensive plays out there in the field. Just the other day against North Greenville, he made a beautiful backhanded grab at a ball. Got the guy out at first base. Just unbelievable. Hopefully we'll have a highlight of that. I know I recorded it, so it's in the system somewhere. We just got to put it up.
Smart man.
Yeah, but baseball has a big conference matchup coming up with UNC Pembroke, and Kenny Thomas still looking for that 1,200th career win, and we're hoping that he can get it soon. It would have been nice if he could get it at home, but with the long road trip coming up, there's a good chance he'll get it, as he's only 1 away from that milestone marker.
Well, UNC Pembroke is a conference opponent, as you mentioned, and a tough one at that. They're 20-8 on the season, so it's going to be a tough series for the Pacers. But I think Coach Thomas has a good shot to walk away with that 1,200th win after this weekend, and we'll hope for the best for them for baseball on the road.
As a baseball going into this weekend with a 20-10 record, 11-4 Peach Belt record, they're in the upper half of that cluster of foes. And if they can take out Pembroke, that'll be one less conference foe they have to worry about. But we will see how that goes. And we'll give you the updates on that probably on the next episode or on your little talk show that'll be happening on Monday.
Absolutely. Pacer Sports Live. We would love to have you guys out at Mellow Mushroom for that. Oh, no, that won't be next week. That'll be the week after.
Oh, wait, okay.
Yeah, due to the national championship game.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yep, here you go.
I can only imagine the
crowd.
The crowd, the insanity.
Too much going on at one time, so we're going to let Mellow Mushroom have their outside seating area for that event, and we'll be back the week after that.
That makes sense. So let's move on ahead to softball now. And softball, there have been some struggles there, to say the least. And you obviously know a lot more about that than I would right now, covering most of their games. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little recap of the past couple weeks of softball?
Yeah, the Pacers have been struggling, as you mentioned, a 9-25 record overall on the season, and it's been a tough going for the Pacers. They had the big win against Flagler, the series split against Flagler, where they won the first game 9-4 and then lost 3-1. And after that, we were kind of excited. We thought maybe that at that point, the Pacers could kind of turn it around a little bit, and then they lost. They got swept by Embry-Riddle, and then came back home to the number 12 at the time, the number 12 ranked team in the nation in Lenore-Rhyne, and just unfortunately could not get anything going against Lenore-Rhyne. And we were hopeful there for a while. Unfortunately, the Pacers just weren't able to get anything going on their road trip. They just weren't. They did finish on a high note. They beat Claflin 5-0 in the second game of the doubleheader there yesterday. But they'll take on Young Harris tomorrow, actually at 3-5 here in Aiken. So be sure to come out for that. But the team they've struggled at times. It seems like whenever one side of the ball is doing well, the other side isn't. So against Claflin, you can look and see the first game 9-8. One area that the Pacers have struggled this season is hitting with runners on base. Obviously, no troubles in that game, unfortunately. Pitching just wasn't able to, close out the game as well as they could have. Now, they showed up for the second game, obviously shutting them out 5-0 in that one. But, you look at it, and then there's a Columbus State loss in the second game, 8-6. Georgia Southwestern in the second game, it went to 9 innings. They lost by 1 run, 6-5. It's just small little things that aren't going the Pacers' way now. However, we can talk about some positives of the team as well. Things like Brielle Jungblood, who, started off the season kind of like Niall Goings did, wasn't quite able to really get that breakout year that we thought they were going to have, that she was going to have, not necessarily a breakout year. Obviously, we knew what she was capable of, but just wasn't able to get things going now. However, in the last couple of weeks, she's just been a monster, especially in this last week. She went 8 for 13 last week with a .615 batting average, which raised her total average from 250 to 313.
Yeah, and she, she was probably up for the Athlete of the Week too, but, sadly it had to go to either Niall Goings or Brielle Jungblood, and well, I guess with the flip of the coin, it went to Niall. But, excellent job from Brielle. It's good to see her turning things around again. Sydney Cate is also another athlete that's finding her groove. She's gotten her average up to 270, which, if you remember where it was at the beginning of the year, that was an incredible improvement.
Yeah, she started off the season in just a heck of a drought. Wasn't able to get a hit in the first few series, but finally able to get one. But then she still struggled after that. However, now she's finding a little bit more consistency. I'm pretty sure she leads the team in home runs at this point. Let me just make sure that is correct.
Double check the stats. And while you're double checking those stats, looking at Hannah Price, she's still doing well. She got her average back up to over 400. She's now at 414 on the year.
It's funny. We were talking the other night while we were prepping our cover, we're prepping our stuff for the podcast. We were saying, no, she's starting to slump. She's only hitting 395 now, but now she's back up to 414 once again. She's just been dominant all season long for the Pacers, and that is a bright spot for the Pacers. She's been that lone star on the team. She's really showing up this season and showing what we've known that she was capable of her entire time here. Now she's really starting to come into her own and really dominate the way we always thought she could.
And it's really great to see that, obviously. I'm really hoping that can, provide a boost for the Pacers as they come towards the close of the season and moving on into next year. And speaking of moving on into next year, how about we look at Courtney Strauss and Caroline Cockerel really establishing themselves as future leaders on this team, especially Courtney Strauss, who, this isn't her freshman year, but it may as well be like her freshman year. She didn't get a lot of time playing freshman. She's a sophomore now, and she's batting .327. She's doing a great job out there for the Pacers, and really hope that this is a sign of things to come from her.
Yeah, she's batting, as you mentioned, .327, currently tied on the team for second in home runs with Hannah Price with 2. This is not something we saw coming from Courtney Strauss, and we've said that 1,000 times. Nobody really knew what to expect. We didn't see much of her last season, so it was kind of like, what is she going to bring to the table? And, man, she brought it to the table this season. She's just absolutely mashing out there. It seems like every time she's up to the plate, she's getting on base. And, she's just, you look at her, she's got a slugging percentage right now, a .475, a .358 OBP. You look at all up and down the stat sheet, she is doing fantastic.
She's doing excellent. And again, really hoping that this can help the Pacers as they move on to the future. And I think that one of the keys next year to making them a good team again, getting them back into tournament play and playoff play, because even though it's not over yet, unless they go on an absolute
tear here at the end of the season, yeah,
then they're not going to probably make the postseason tournaments, but. Next year, if they can get on the same page with their pitching and batting, and they can both perform well at the same time, then they're going to be fine. They're going to be a good team again. They'll be back over 500, and they'll be playing for that Peach Belt Conference.
Well, one thing to look at with the pitching is young freshman Caroline Cockerel. She's currently leading the team in ERA with 3.60 ERA. She's got a 2-7 win-loss record, but my feelings on the win-loss record for a pitcher.
It doesn't mean it's not as important.
It's not. Yeah, you never know with it. She's been one of those players or one of those pitchers. She's always looked good. She's kind of struggled a bit at times with her walks, but she always manages to find a way to get it under control. She's only, she hasn't really gotten shelled that much this season. She's had a couple of games where she got hit really hard, but not bad. She's looked fantastic for a freshman, and it should be really encouraging for Coach Jerry Snyder and for fans of the Pacers, to know that such a young player has so much promise, and leading the team in ERA as a freshman is no small feat. 3.60 ERA as we mentioned, and Hannah Price will also be back next year for the Pacers, and she's second on the team with a 4.13. So it's not fantastic ERA for her, but it's not bad either. It's not the worst ERA you could have.
But also look at Hannah Price. I mean, even if her ERA isn't great, she can come up to the plate and make up for that with her bat.
Exactly. She'll give up a run as a pitcher, and she'll say, "Okay, no problems. We'll just get it back right now."
I'll just go ahead and drive 3 in at the plate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the kind of player that Hannah Price is, and the kind of player we always knew she could be. So it's nice to see her coming into her own a little bit as a junior here.
So the keys for the success for softball: pitching and batting on the same page.
Exactly.
And the bench needs to step up. That's another note that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at times this season, the players playing in the second game have struggled a little bit. You've got players like Leah Bogosian, who's hitting 279, Kat St. Peter 275. But after that, you kind of see a dip in average. There's not a lot of power on the bench. They just haven't been consistent with their hitting, and that's one thing the Pacers are going to need next season from their bench players in order to have success. You can't be successful if your players in the second game aren't able to be as consistent as the ones in the first. And that's something that they're definitely going to have to focus on this offseason. And they're going to need big performances from a few key players on that bench. And one player that I want to see, not necessarily step up because we've only seen her in 5 games, but one player I want to see kind of get a little bit more time maybe on the field is Maci Hutto. She's a freshman. She's played, as we mentioned, she's played in 5 games. She's hitting 250. She's 3 for 12 at the plate. So, I mean,
but you're liking what you're seeing from her.
Exactly.
It's just you can't really put your finger on it, but you're saying there's something good about her.
Exactly. I like her as a player a lot, and I think she can really, really make a difference on this team if she can find a home somewhere on the diamond and get a permanent position out there.
All right, sounds good. Let's hope that the Pacers can address these issues in the offseason if they want to take our advice. If not, well, that's up to them.
Absolutely, and I think this team can be really special. There's just a few key pieces that have to fall into place, and once they do, this team's going to be one to watch out for.
Sounds good to me. Speaking of good, let's move on to golf.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm getting a good feeling about golf. I don't know about you, but I'm smelling a 4th trophy in that trophy case.
Well, I mean, if one team's going to be able to do it, it's going to be this team. They are monsters on the golf scene around here.
Yeah, they are currently ranked number 10 in the nation, if I'm correct. I think they may have moved. No, I think they're still number 10. We'll double check that in a moment, but on our notes we have them at number 10. Give you a quick recap of the Pacer Golf in invitational play and such. 4th place finish at their most recent one, the Furman Invitational. 21 teams played in that, and all of them were Division I except for USC Aiken. So again, Pacers going up against tough competition. They were second after the first day, absolutely dominating with a 7 under par finish after day 1. Third day they slipped a little bit. Second day they slipped a little bit. They were third after the second day, and then obviously 4th they tied with the hosts Furman for 4th place at the Furman Invitational. So a good outing, especially when you're going up against Division I squads. Axel Austinson again showing that he's one of our top golfers. 11th he finished 11th on the day, shooting 1 under par. So a good day for Axel Austinson, but that's not the one we want to highlight. We want to look at the Bobcat Invitational, which the Pacers won. And while winning an Invitational is good and all, when you knock off the top 4 teams in the country and beat not only them but 7 of the top 10 in the country, that's incredible.
It absolutely is, and what we were talking about this earlier on in the week. This is what we like to call a signature win. This is one of those wins where you come in, and this is what people look at when they're talking about the postseason, and this is how they look at seedings and who gets in, who's left out. This is the kind of win where you say, okay, this team belongs here. They went in, as you mentioned, beat 4 top teams in the nation, 7 out of the top 10. That's incredible for this team to come in and do that at a very tough invitational, the Bobcat Invitational, hosted by Georgia College.
Yeah, that right there alone makes me smell that 4th trophy. It's because of that finish that shows that these guys, when they play their game, when they play at their best, they can beat the best and they can win a national championship. And I've wanted to be here for one. I've been at this school now for 7 years now. This is my 7th year. Not all of them are working, and not all of them school. It's a little combination of the two, but I'd love to be here for a national championship. We thought we'd be there for one, for the basketball one a few years ago, back in 2014. Sadly, that didn't happen. Let's hope that golf can fulfill our dreams of winning that. But a little more background on this win. Not only did they beat the top 10, 7 of the top 10. Not only did they beat 4 of the top 4 teams in the nation. Johnson Holiday was tied for first, so he basically won with another player, and Axel Austinson finished third, which, because two players were tied for first, he basically finished second.
Yep.
Holiday's stat line was he shot a 206. That's good for 4 under par. Axel Austinson was a 207, 3 under par, and it was a wire-to-wire win for the team. They never trailed.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Finished first on the second day. Finished first on the first day. First on the second day. There was never a point in time where they weren't in control of things. And when you got two guys like Holiday and Austinson at the top of your team, it's hard not to win. A big invitational like this. 4 under par, 3 under par. If your top 2 guys are finishing like that, you can't ask for much worse. And then the guys who weren't in first and second, you look at Dan Sheehan, who only hit 6 over. That's not bad either. And August Lindvall right underneath him at 7 over. So I mean, even the guys who aren't at the top are not hitting bad at all.
They're doing a great job out there, and this also keeps a streak going that the Pacers have. The USC Egg and Pacers golf team has won at least one event in each of their last 7 seasons, so they're keeping that streak going. We'll hopefully can move on to number 8 next year, and if we don't, let's just hope we have a national championship at the end of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys are absolutely killing it right now, and they're getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, but they still have a tough road ahead. They are going to Augusta for their next tournament, the Augusta 3M Invitational. That is going to be tomorrow. It starts tomorrow, March 31st, and it goes on to April 1st, April Fool's Day. So hopefully the Pacers won't give us an April Fool's of a loss.
Yeah, let's hope not. I mean, this is a big event for the Pacers, and they have to come away with the win here if they want to really ride this I guess you would call it a hot streak. Yeah,
hot streak, whatever you want to call it. They're riding it, and they're going to be riding it into the Peach Belt Championships. That comes right after the Augusta Invitational. And reminder, Peach Belt champions, the defending Peach Belt champions, are the Pacers. We won it last year, and we'll see if we can win it again. Those will be held April 13th through 14th in St. Augustine, Florida. And now we're pretty safe in assuming, even if we don't win the conference, that they will be playing in the NCAA Super Regionals. So keep an eye on your calendars for that, May 7th and 9th in Conover, North Carolina. So those aren't too far away. And if Pacer faithful want to come on out and show some support, I'm sure they'd be more than appreciative of that, because if they win the Super Regionals, they will move on to the NCAA Nationals. Well, actually, they don't need to win it. The top 2 teams in every region go automatically. Yeah. So as long as they can at least be number 2, they're going on to the NCAA Nationals. That is May 21st and 22nd in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So hopefully,
the bustling metropolis of Muscle Shoals.
Well, I've heard that they have great golf courses out there.
That's what I've heard as well.
So I'm not a golf aficionado, but even I know enough to know that they've got some good golf courses.
All right.
So hopefully, with any luck, we'll be able to send the Pacers out there to compete for a national championship and bring one home this year, May 21st and 22nd. And if they go, I would be tempted to make the trip out myself if I can find the time. So good luck to golf as they move on to championship play right after Augusta. And we'll move on to men's tennis, who has been a surprise. Well, not really a surprise, but they're doing a lot better, than a lot of people would have assumed, considering our top players are out.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing, is it's not that we're surprised how well they're doing, it's that we're surprised how well they're doing in the face of such adversity. They're playing through injuries and just all kind of a litany of issues, and yet they're still able to put together a very successful season, a season where they're currently nationally ranked at number 15.
Yep, they are 9-4 on the year, 2-3 in conference play. Number 15 in the nation. That's not nothing to sneeze at. Despite losing to number 2 in the nation, Lander, they have maintained that number 15 rank. So great job for them. And I'll go ahead and give you a recap of their last couple weeks. A victory over North Greenville. It was a close one though, 5 matches to 4. Even though I play tennis, I get the vernacular mixed up every now and again.
The lingo.
The lingo, that's it, yeah. They were 1-2 in doubles. As you know, they start off with 3 doubles matches. So they were behind in doubles, and then they took it away in singles matches. And it was big performances from their number 1, number 2, and number 3s. They were absolute dominations. Sabugero finished with a 6-1 victory in the first set, 6-1 victory in the second set. Andrade 6-3 in the first set, 6-2 in the second set, and Garcia Gil, who was the number 3, 6-2, 6-1. So great performances from your top 3 seeded guys in that matchup against North Greenville to really secure the 4-2 win in singles and the 5-4 victory overall.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what you have to have. You have to have guys who can step up and make those big adjustments and step into those number 1 spots whenever your top players are gone. And that was a great job by Antonio Sabagero to come in there at that number 1 spot. And he's only a sophomore, so that's a lot of promise right there for Coach Dom. You look at a guy like Antonio Sabagero who can come in and step up into that number 1 spot and pick up a big win for you in a match like that. That's encouraging.
And it's just great. It's just great to see them coming in in the face of adversity and still doing that. But they moved on to Lander, and as I just said, they lost to Lander, who at the time was ranked number 2 in the nation. I mean, you're hard pressed to beat a team like that, and it was not pretty, to say the least. Andrades picked up the only win in that entire series with a victory at the number 2 singles. 6-3, 6-3 was the final there. So at least they didn't get completely swept, which is what they ended up doing to Morehouse in the next one, a 9-0 sweep, and it was absolute dominant play from them. I actually managed to get out there for a little bit and watch some of the play that they had, and they, to say the least, lived up to the hype. The team only lost a total of 9 games combined in all of their sets played.
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
That's your team. That's utter domination is what it is. I mean, that's exactly what you want to see from your team. And I'm sure Coach Dom is more than thrilled with that performance. He
was more than thrilled with that, but he was even more thrilled with what happened next, because they managed to beat rival Augusta with a 7-2 win. Even though it was 7-2, there were close matches all around. Some of the sets were only won by 2 or 3 games, and others required a third set. And so they were out there, they were working. It was home. It was a home matchup, luckily. But the Pacer, I drove by there. I saw the Pacer faithful were out in force, obviously, for Augusta. I mean, you definitely want to be out for any type of rivalry match, but it was a good win, good solid win over Augusta. And I mean, Coach Dom has to be sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, and well, this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but Pacer men's tennis and women's tennis both won against Augusta, which actually put the Pacers ahead in the battle for the paddle, the inaugural rivalry series we have here with Augusta this season. They're currently ahead 4.5 to 3 over Augusta, and if the Pacers win the next series in baseball or softball with the Jags, we will win the inaugural battle for the paddle.
Baseball actually plays Augusta very soon. After they're done with Pembroke, they play Newberry, I believe, on the road for a 1-game match, and then they play Augusta for their 3-game set early in April. But that's going back to baseball. We're already done with baseball.
Yeah, we'll let that. That's just an interesting little tidbit that I saw on Twitter earlier this week and wanted to share on the podcast. It's kind of a big deal. We'll be the first winners of the river rivalry.
Oh, jeez, that's a
tongue twister.
We're gonna try to avoid saying that.
River rivalry.
Call it the AA Oh no, let's not call it the AA rivalry.
No,
That's even worse. I take it back. I immediately regret my decision.
Continuing on with tennis.
Continuing on with women's tennis, as you said, we were moving on a little ahead, but not too far ahead. 8-5 on the year, 2-3 in conference play. Women's tennis doing an excellent job as well. Not nationally ranked, unfortunately, like their men counterparts, but a 9-0 win over North Greenville. That's a good way to start off your last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we talked about it, another sweep for Pacer tennis. I mean, that's how better to get off a nice little road stretch there started off than with a sweep over North Greenville.
Well, I mean, you could do what Kayla Calvert and Gianna Tsini did. Both of them managed to sweep their singles opponent 6-0. 6-0.
And there you go. It is on the individual level. That's not bad at all.
That's the only way you can top a sweep of a team is a sweep of your opponent.
Exactly.
And after that, they moved on to Lander, another close one, a 5-4 win. It was 2-1 in doubles in favor of the Pacers to start out the day, and then they split in singles 3-3. And you can thank Neves for the Pacer win there. She clinched the match with a 6-1, 6-0 victory in her when facing her opponent. So, thank you for giving us the win over conference foe Lander.
Absolutely.
And giving them the high they needed to move on to Augusta. And women actually beat Augusta by a little bit more than the men did with an 8-1 win. And their only loss came in the number 6 singles, which is the lowest seeding ranking, whatever you want to call it, for the day. And it still went to 3 sets, so it wasn't a bashing. It was a close matchup the entire time, and to only lose your number 6, that's a pretty good day for USC Aiken.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I mean, there's only one way to do better than that, and that's to get the full sweep. But I'm sure the Pacers will take the big win there over the River rivalry.
All right, so that about closes things out for tennis. Not a whole lot of action going on in the fall sports. They're still out there. They're still recruiting. Basketball is they're doing their work.
Getting back into the swing of things.
Volleyball is still up there practicing every day. You can hear them running around and shouting a lot of times when we're doing this podcast. And
absolutely.
We got to tell them, hey, quiet down. We're recording down here. And they just look at us with contempt.
And as far as women's tennis go, they actually have a really big match coming up today. That's probably actually going on right now against the number 3 team in the nation, Columbus State. So, that's going to be a tough one. But a big win there could be huge for women's tennis.
I'd really appreciate that. Maybe it'd even give them a top 25 ranking. You never know. They're 8-5. They got a chance.
Absolutely.
And it would actually, if they do win, they'd even up in conference play too. So that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be very helpful.
So now we'll close out women's tennis, and we'll begin to close things out. But before we close things out, let's go ahead and get some quick little predictions before we move on for some of our spring sports. Baseball. What do you think? How do you think we're going to finish off?
I think this team can finish off very strong. You saw the loss to North Greenville, but I mean, not really much shame there. North Greenville is just an absolutely fantastic team. I think this Pacer team is good to finish, I think, probably second or third in conference, and that'll send them on into regionals. And once they get there, there's no predicting what can happen there. I mean, you need big performances from a lot of guys, but, I mean, this team has enough talent on it in order to, I think, have a big win in regions. I mean, it would take a lot, but I think this team can, as I mentioned, I predict a second or third finish in conference, and then can eventually, maybe make some noise in the regional tournament as well.
I'm with you there on the conference finish. I believe they're going to finish. I'm going to just stick with third. I'm going to say they are going to finish third in the regular season for conference play. They will obviously make the tournament. They'll make the conference tournament. I think they'll go far, and I'll even say that I'm going to say that they'll finish at least as runner-up into the conference tournament. I think they actually have it in them to do that this year. Mm-hmm. And if they do that, they will make the regional. I think if they do not finish as a runner-up, though, I think making the regional is going to be a bit tougher because there's a lot of good opponents in this region. They really got to finish at minimum conference runner-up in the tournament to make it to the regionals. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see them go on to the NCAA tournaments and possibly even further. You never know.
It'd be lovely.
That'd be absolutely wonderful. But those are my predictions. I think that runner-up finish in the conference at least, followed by a tournament berth. Go ahead now and get some predictions on another team, on tennis as well. We've already given our predictions basically for golf. We're saying they're going all the way this year, so we're not going to worry about golf.
That's the general feeling. With tennis, I don't know. It's hard to make predictions for tennis because so much can happen on a single day. But I'd give a similar for men's tennis. I think they can win the conference. I really do. Women's tennis, I think they can make some noise in a conference tournament, finish second or third, much the same as baseball. I think they have that in them. And regionals, man, I can't even bear to make a prediction. I don't have enough knowledge of tennis to make that level of a prediction. But I think these teams have enough talent. I can see talent, and I know that there's talent on both of these teams.
Well, I love the fact that you're saying that you think our tennis team could win the conference because you're very optimistic.
I'm an optimist.
I, however, am pessimistic. I don't think there are some unbelievably good teams in the Peach Belt Conference, and the only way that this men's tennis team can beat them is if they play hot and they play their absolute best game against them. And I honestly, I hate saying it because I never like to say it, but I don't think they'll win the conference this year. But I do predict a tournament berth, and I do predict them to at least advance one round in the tournament. That's my prediction. And the reason I say that is because next year I think that this team is going to be even better. They're going to be a top 10 team because we're still missing our top 2 players. Get them back. We're top 10. We're going to be rivaling for the conference. Then I'm going to say they're going to win the conference.
Fair enough.
That's when I'll make the conference championship prediction. But right now, they're going to make it back into the NCAA tournament in men's. Women's tennis, I actually am going to also say they're going to go to the tournament. I don't think they're going to go as far as the men, but I see them going back in there. Both of these teams have made it into the tournament within the past couple of years, especially men's tennis was just there last year, and I feel like they'll be there again this year.
Absolutely, and I think those are some solid predictions. We'll see what happens.
Well, let's hope out of all of them the golf one really comes true. Let's get that. Let's bring that national championship home, Pacer Nation. But until then, thank you for joining us. I'm Marcus Johnson. He's Jordan Phillips. Thank you, and have a good one.